Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4141. Today's date is sorry. Today's date is July 6, 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 7:56 a.m. Right. So should we jump to the question? I like didn't really like this frame. Like I like the frame. Like it's a very like this kind of like a frame is a very blank. If I move closer, yeah, this would be kind of like a much more better. But the problem is that my head is cut off. So if I just put right here, so this would be much more better. But still, I just don't like it. But still, it's a eye level. Okay, yeah, it's on eye level. So probably it would be much more better. And it's a like a really good frame. Okay, yeah. And like I this blank frame, I don't love it. Okay, but whatever. What choice do we have? If I just do this, no, it's I just yeah, this would be kind of like a much better. Yeah, I'm kind of like a simply open up the things like this frame is a kind of like a cover up by myself, and then yeah, so this frame is a kind of like a really good. It has a kind of like a green and sky and things and that. Whatever. So should we jump to the question? Let's go. All right. So question is, how will I stop misuse by bad people or bad group? Okay. First of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to build application called My Artifact. What exactly is this application? When you write the diary every single day, you cannot able to be write the diary the way that you wanted to. The reason is that your thought process are actually much more faster than your writing speed. Your writing speed actually slow is because of you need a pen, you need a paper, you need a convenience, and even after that, you need to put lot of amount of effort to write the diary. That's why almost no one actually write the diary, like nothing really at all. But what if instead of kind of like a writing a diary, what if we could record a diary, like a audio record a diary? The stuff that you are kind of like a listening right now, this is my audio diary. I called it My Artifact. My Artifact episode number 4141. I am doing this thing for past 11 years. I am doing this thing every single day. Because of writing a diary is a self-reflection process, so as recording a diary, so as recording artifact is a self-reflection process. It add so much amount of value in myself. The person that I'm became today and person that I will become tomorrow, it is all because of artifact. I wanted to share this value that I get. I wanted to share this value. How do I supposed to do that? By building an application. My application is somewhat something like a YouTube platform. Like in YouTube, you actually upload your video. Other people kind of like a sees your video. Same thing, you actually upload your artifact in artifact platform. Um, Other people kind of like a listen your artifact. There is only one catch is that no one knows your name. Your privacy is always kept hidden. Like my real name is Saurabh Authare, but my artifact handle name would be Prozac 1943 or something else, so that my identity is always been kept hidden. So this is my kind of like application. Okay, before I wanted to build this application, I wanted to aware of all the possible consequences, specifically worst possible consequences. And that's why I went to ChatGPT. I said that this is my app idea, suggest me hundreds of worst possible consequences. ChatGPT kind of like suggests me all those worst possible consequences in hundreds of questions. This is one of those questions. By the way, question actually in the mobile phone, but while recording cannot do anything at all. So that's why I wrote the question in here. This is the question. By the way, this is the book that I'm reading right now. The Principia of Mathematica. Really great book. Really difficult book too. If you start reading this book, oh my god, it just like it's not a kind of like a bedside book that you could read. No, it really required it required your drag of so much attention and things and that and that. So whatever. I if I started talking about this book, I just can't stop talking about this book. So yeah, whatever. So let's jump into it. Okay, so question is that how will I stop the misuse of bad group or bad thing? Okay, yeah. Does my application will kind of utilized by bad people? Okay, bad group. Okay, what is exactly is this defined? Like how do I supposed to define the bad group or bad people and things and that and that? Well, basically is this thing the person who is a kind of like basically this is the audio artifact. The like basically everyone has a kind of like a freedom to say the whatever the stuff that they wanted to say. Okay, yeah, that is kind of like it's a kind of like a thing again, like they wanted to say whatever they wanted to say, complete freedom that they have. But some people will kind of utilize that freedom for not so right purposes. Example, they might gonna talk about something that they shouldn't supposed to, like they talk about the politics, they talk about the kind of religion, they talk about the hate speeches, they talk about the something that might gonna create chaos in the society, which is very much happen. But how do I kind of somebody say like how do I supposed to kind of things like basically every person has a kind of an opinion regarding about how the kind of a good government is it, what kind of some flaws it is, like basically it's just think that it's a in India it's a kind of a very much debate that key which political party is kind of a much more better, BJP or Congress or things and that. Okay, yeah. And it's bit really common, it's a very way to kind of a common talk. Okay, yeah, to talk about the politics and things and that. So basically is this thing like how do I supposed to define that that is a kind of a bad thing? Well, I have to be kind of understand the context. Okay, basically is this thing that artifact is a kind of a platform is when the user will kind of talk about stuff, they will gonna talk about something that like basically it's a raw, it's unfiltered, there is no backing at all, there is no evidence at all, there is nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. You cannot able to be proof that whatever the particular person says in the artifact is kind of a legit or right or things and that. So it doesn't really make sense at all. Okay, but whatever the some people will kind of talk about the politics and things and that. So does it wrong? Well, like basically is this thing that criticizing the government and criticizing things, it is a good thing, right? It is a kind of a people will aware of all the kind of a government what we're gonna do, they have behind their back and things and that, which is good thing, right? Yeah, but sometime it kind of too much. Like I'm not kind of taking a side of government, definitely not. Okay, yeah. Like obviously some governments are kind of like a do very not so right stuff, but some governments are kind of doing something right stuff, but the way that they are kind of doing something I don't know, and I'm not gonna taking side of things and that. Okay, yeah. So how do I supposed to define the bad group of people who are kind of talking something bad shit and things and that, and why do I supposed to be aware of that, or why do I supposed to be kind of protect them, or why do I supposed to be kind of keep them away from my community or things and that? What exactly is this thing that and that? Well, artifact is a platform where you can improve yourself. Ask such a question that matter to you, ask such a question that kind of somebody help you to become much more better. Ask such a question that what I mistake did yesterday and how do I not to do mistake tomorrow or today. So like basically is this thing a self-help question or kind of somebody such a question that kind of a matter, or tell your story that what exactly happened with you, things and that, but make sure that do not kind of mention other people name and things and that. Whatever the kind of somebody stress that you have, just blunt it out, things and that. Artifact is a kind of give you that freedom to kind of express whatever the stuff inside your head, just blunt it out. Okay, yeah. It does feel really good. Okay, which is kind of a really good. Okay, now if you are kind of talking about something that doesn't really matter to you, like a politics or things, like I know basically knowing about the politics and things is much more matter. But dude, are you a politician? Are you a kind of a particular person who associate with that thing? If you're not, then doesn't really make sense at all. Obviously it's really essential to know that key who is the ruling party, what exactly they do, does they have any kind of like a corruption and things like that. You really need to aware of that, ki what's exactly the government doing and how they are kind of like utilizing our tax money and things like that, and that which is true. That is kind of like a really great. Okay, yeah. But if you are just talking about that particular stuff, it doesn't really make sense at all. Like, I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing. Artifact is a kind of like a platform or kind of like a things that whatever you talk, you will become more that particular person. Example is this thing that if you are just kind of like a comparing regarding about which political party is really good and which political party is not really good and things and that. So what exactly happened that you are talk about the negativity thing all the time, because you are kind of like I say this political party is kind of like did something wrong thing and this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. So basically this thing, if you are like basically your intention was right, your intention was that he kind of like somebody be more aware of that, he kind of like what does government thinks and do and stuff like that. But if you are just kind of like talking about this thing, then your brain is kind of like filled with all the negativity and things and that. Now what will gonna happen that if you are gonna talk more about this thing, artifact is actually enhanced more. Like artifact is a kind of like a platform where whatever you actually talk, it enhance. If you are talk about the physics, you will become the physician. If you are talk about the economics, you will become financial officer. If you talk about medicine, you will become a doctor. Like literally, yeah, this is what it is. It kind of like enhance the whatever the kind of like a quality that you have. It does means that whatever the quality that you have, like if you talk about the politics or hate speeches or kind of like a negativity, it reflect on your real life too. You will also become the very negative person too. Okay, now that negativity will kind of like impact on your real life. Like basically you might kind of like a somebody like a basically like a kind of like a doing a negative behavior with your kind of like a significant other or people around you and things and that. So do you understand now, like basically if you are kind of like a talk, like this is a kind of like a very much essential that na ki if whatever the kind of like a particular person who is kind of like a talk about that particular stuff, you will become more that particular person. So that is a kind of like a thing, because artifact is a kind of like a thing that you actually talk, literally you talk, and whatever you talk, it became that kind of like a reality. So I don't want that, because if you are talking about the negativity all the time, whatever the negativity that you have, politics, religious, or whatever things, obviously like basically we feel with the kind of like a world where negativity sells. That is good. Okay, yeah, we have a lot of frustration things and that, and sometimes we blunt it out. Sometimes we kind of like wanted to do wanted to kind of like a basically just kind of like somebody say this you are this actually happened because of you and things and that. Like sometimes kind of like a negativity is we wanted to kind of like things and that. Fine, go do it, but not every single day, because when you do it in every single day, then your personality will become that thing. Your personality will become that thing, and it kind of like reflect on your real life too. You might gonna spoil your relationship, you might gonna spoil your kind of like a somebody career growth, things and that. Okay, so like basically is this thing, does it kind of like impact on me? Well, it does not impact on me, it impact on you more. Okay, yeah, it impact on user who kind of like record such a thing and that it impact on them more. So that is a kind of like a very much big concern for me, and I don't want that people who are actually talking about the negativity all the time. Okay, so that's the thing. Okay, but people will gonna talk na, like if you are kind of like giving them freedom, then people will gonna talk. So how do you supposed to be maintain that thing, or how do you supposed to be kind of like control that thing to kind of like people who are not gonna talk about that negativity stuff and that. Well, basically is this thing that key first of all is that na ki uh, artifact is a kind of like a somebody controlled by Adam. What's Adam? Adam is a AI, by the way, AI, artificial intelligence, and it is also algorithm. Adam algorithm or AI algorithm. Adam. Okay. So basically, what exactly it does that key whatever you kind of like a record, okay, whatever the kind of like a you record, Adam kind of like a try to create the personality about you, that who you are and what is actually your opinion. Okay, let me tell you one thing. Adam does not have your information. Adam kind of like a recognize user by token number. That token number actually generated by the authenticator. Authenticator has the email ID of your, and authenticator knows who you are, but authenticator kind of like a generated token ID. In that token ID kind of like a transfer through kind of like a Adam, and Adam will kind of like a somebody create the personality according to that token number. Okay, yeah. So Adam does not know your real name, nothing really at all. Adam knows just a token number. Okay, from that token number, it create the personality regarding about the particular person. Who is that? What is that? Who is that means also Adam does not know your name, nothing really at all. Like as I mentioned, when the people who kind of like record the artifact, they trim out the particular segment that they mention. As also in the application, there is a lot of things that kind of like make you to not to mention the name and things like that. And that's so you are kind of like somebody try to eliminate the whatever the kind of like personal detail. Okay, so eliminate that. Adam only have a kind of like your story. Adam have a kind of like whatever the stuff that you say. So Adam try to create the personality of you, who you are, what you are, and kind of like what is that your thought process, things and that and that. Okay, yeah. How does Adam create that personality? Let's create that kind of like a somebody like your kind of like a specification by whatever the stuff that you talk. Okay, yeah. Let's just say you are kind of like a recording artifact, and basically you are kind of like talking about all the time of negativity things. You are talking about the government is not kind of like doing this thing. There is a that, there is a that, there is a that, there is a that. So Adam kind of like understand that ki you are kind of like a this much particular person. So what does Adam do? Adam will kind of like a somebody feed you such a content that kind of like a positivity, feed you such a content that kind of like a somebody make you feel really good. Kind of like Adam feed you such a content that kind of like a somebody that you feel really good, that you will not gonna talk about, you will gonna talk less about negativity. Okay, you will not gonna stop talk about the negativity because it's your nature, but you Adam try to minimize that thing to kind of like provide such a feed that kind of like you feel something that key okay positivity is also really exists too. Also Adam is also kind of like showing us such a kind of like a something question or prompt that key kind of like a somebody that key resonate more positivity from you. Like basically is this thing uh, a question is that ki kind of like let's just say you are a kind of like a very negative person. The kind of like Adam kind of like somebody recommends such a question that ki what's exactly beautiful thing happened today, or what's exactly good thing happened today. Obviously you have kind of like a really worst day, but obviously something is really beautiful happened. Maybe kind of like your senior might gonna say good morning to you. It's very tiny thing, but yeah, it kind of like a feel really good, and because of this good morning it kind of like a became something really happy. So yeah, enhance that thing, enhance that stuff. Okay, sometimes that is a kind of like a much more matter. Okay, so this is how kind of like Adam is a try to kind of like a convert the people who are from negativity to positivity, but not converting, because Adam is not converting. Negativity is also really essential to understand the positivity, and positivity is also really essential to understand negativity. Adam try to balance the personality regarding about Adam is try not to make you kind of like a very harmful person and things like that and that. Okay, yeah. And if you wanted to use the kind of like artifact for full potential purpose, then kind of like ask such a question that you wanted to become. Like basically you wanted to become a lawyer, or you wanted to become a kind of like a pilot, or whatever it is, things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Then possibly in the question bank, I don't really have kind of like a create the question bank right now, but in the future I will gonna create a question bank. In that question bank, kind of like a somebody kind of like a tell the Adam that ki what kind of like a question that Adam should supposed to be suggest you. And you kind of like a mention that ki I wanted to become a something, let's just say a lawyer, or kind of like a things and that and that. So I wanted to become a lawyer, so suggest me kind of like somebody more question according to the lawyer and things and that and that. Okay, Adam try to kind of like a compile everything and kind of like a suggest you such a question regarding about lawyer, regarding about how do you supposed to become a lawyer, not just become a lawyer, but kind of like a somebody is this thing according to the kind of like a tactics and things and that and that and that and that. Okay, yeah. Like basically what I does, like right now I'm kind of like asking this kind of like somebody asking this kind of like question regarding about I want to establish my business. Now I don't really have any Adam, but I have ChatGPT. So basically I'm using ChatGPT to kind of like create a question. I kind of like wrote the question in a kind of like somebody here, and kind of like asking the question to you. So basically what exactly happened that key I would be more aware of that. What do I supposed to do when this kind of like a situation will gonna come? And as also it does not kind of like a somebody enhance my quality regarding about that. How do I supposed to aware of that all the possible consequences might gonna happen before even uh, publish the application. So this is what it is. It kind of like a somebody that key it kind of like enhance me that key what kind of like a will gonna come and how do I supposed to aware of that. So that's the kind of like a things, use that particular purpose, like use this kind of like use the artifact for that particular purpose, that whatever person that you wanted to become. Because the artifact is a kind of like a thing, whatever the stuff that you will gonna talk, you will become more that particular person. Okay, yeah. So that is a kind of like a, so this is a kind of like a for the normal user. Okay, yeah, like the normal user who are kind of like a been through and that Adam try to kind of like a some way cool down or kind of like a things. But so many user are kind of like a spam. Spam means what? They are not a kind of like a real user. They are kind of like a, just a random user. They are kind of like a open up the kind of like a login through my application, and they will kind of talk about something that they shouldn't supposed to do, and they will leave the application, or they will not gonna continue this and that and that. Okay, who are those people and why they will kind of like do this thing? Well, basically is this thing, a spam is a kind of like a things that na, because of artifact is a kind of like a platform where kind of like somebody, so many people will kind of like listen other people kind of like artifact and things and that. Okay, yeah. So higher possible chances that ki kind of like a something that ki divert the people mindset. Okay, so kind of like a somebody, some kind of like a company kind of like a say this thing that ki, let's just say election actually happened, and in that election let's just say BJP or Congress, whoever the kind of like a political party, kind of like a somebody that key kind of like a did a kind of like a spam, like a basically they are kind of like a recording bunch of artifact regarding about that other political parties kind of like a doing something wrong and things and that, and they are doing this thing multiple times, like a WhatsApp forward, like basically in the WhatsApp forward people are kind of like sharing toxicity and things, and that same thing that spam will gonna happen in the artifact. So in that situation, how this will kind of like a control, how do I supposed to control the spam? Well, the easiest solution is that ki kind of like a block that thing, or kind of like a somebody that ki not allow that particular person, like yeah. But technically is this thing na ki that is kind of like a, yeah, that could be possible but very lengthy process. Okay, yeah, what exactly is this thing, how do I supposed to be kind of like that? So I kind of like a create a kind of like a judgmental system, and in that judgmental system every artifact is actually going through judgmental system. Okay, yeah. In the judgmental system 30% actually kind of like a judged by the Adam, and 70% actually judged by the people. Okay, yeah. Now every artifact is kind of like a been through process, that means is kind of like a judging. Okay, Adam is kind of like a judging whatever the kind of like artifact that you kind of like a recorded. Adam, first of all, what is actually this thing? Adam is just not kind of like a somebody, whatever the stuff that you said, it's not try to understand that. Adam is also understand that whatever the stuff that you said in the back, or kind of like a previously. Okay, yeah. Like example is this thing, previously like you were talking about something really good and stuff like that, but suddenly you are kind of like talking about this thing. So that means you are a real user and you are kind of like a little bit frustrated, that's why you are kind of like talking about that. But if you are a spam, then that means that they don't really have backend data, they don't really have any kind of like a things, they just kind of like a create a new profile, and they just kind of like a sharing the hate speeches and things and that. Okay, yeah. So Adam is a kind of like a somebody that Adam tried to think that this is a kind of like a spam, because no one kind of like a somebody just open the application and kind of like a start talking about the kind of like hate speeches and things and that. It doesn't really make sense at all. Okay, yeah. So basically what does Adam will gonna do? Adam is not gonna block that user, no, nothing like at all. Okay, yeah. What does do? Adam is a kind of like a somebody defined as a good quality of artifact, bad quality of artifact. Okay, yeah. Good quality of artifact means the such a artifact that kind of like a value more into the community, self-help, or kind of like a, such a question that kind of like a matter to them, matter to the community, matter to kind of like a develop more and things and that is a good quality of artifact. Bad quality of artifact means kind of like a somebody the threats, suicide, kind of like a somebody that kind of like a like basically hate speeches and kind of like a, so many wrong stuff. Okay, yeah. Which kind of like a create a chaos in the society. Okay, yeah. So what does do? Adam is a kind of like understand whatever the stuff that you say. Okay, and from that particular stuff, it kind of like a give the kind of like a something mark. Okay, remark regarding about 10 out of how much it is. Okay, yeah. Adam kind of like a gives you, if you are talking about that hate speeches and things and that Adam gives you mark 10 out of 2. Okay, yeah. Now because of Adam kind of like a gives you mark 10 out of 2, that means it automatically direct into that wrong box. Okay, or kind of like a things and that which is not really good. Now from that wrong box, it also kind of like a visible to the public. Okay, yeah, but visibility or recommendation is very less. Like let me tell you thing, if you have good quality of artifact, it recommend more I will kind of like recommend your artifact more, like I will kind of like spread your artifact all around the world, like basically US, Europe, like Africa, New Zealand, to everywhere, all around the world. Also you are speaking in English, then okay. If you are speaking regional language, then I cannot able to be kind of like a spread your artifact to the more. But if you are speaking English language, then I will kind of like recommend to the artifact to the more and more, like a spread everywhere. Like you might get millions and millions of views like quickly as possible. But if you are talking about something bad, then your artifact will recommend to the very less and less people, very less and less people. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like a things. I am not stopping people to not to record the kind of like a spam and things and that they will, because it's a kind of like a freedom. I'm kind of like giving them whatever things and that. But still, if you are talking about that, they will kind of like recommend to the less and less people and almost nothing really at all. Okay, so that the people who are kind of like doing a spam, they will kind of like a like they will not gonna encourage more to kind of like a record artifact, because recording such a thing is kind of like a like it doesn't really make sense at all, because it's kind of like a talking to the wall. It kind of like a feel like that. So this is might gonna happen. So this is like this, like might means like that I didn't really create the structure, but I have a plan and I'm gonna kind of like create this thing. This is how this is how I kind of like a control the kind of like a wrong group and people and spam and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now if I wanted to take the action according to the spam, well, I will not gonna take the kind of like a action if the government is kind of like a telling me these are the kind of like a spam profile, create a chaos in that and that. Well, basically this will not gonna happen. If the spam kind of like a account is already kind of like a recommend to the less, then they will not gonna create the chaos and things and that. So basically blocking and kind of like a things, it doesn't really kind of like a, like you don't need a kind of like a do this thing. Like basically I believe in solving a problem before it even exists. So that's what I'm kind of like a doing. A spam is a kind of like a create a chaos. So before this thing, kind of like a recommend to the less people, which kind of like a really good thing. But still there is a, it's not just kind of like as much as easy as it say. Like basically I have to be understand what is the right piece of content, wrong piece of content too, because Adam is a machine. Okay, Adam does not know what is the good quality of content, bad quality of content. So Adam, I have to be learn regarding about that. Like basically what I was thinking that na, ki Adam is a kind of like a create the possible consequences, that if those artifact, if the bad artifact is kind of like a recommend to the more and more people, Adam try to create the possible future consequences, that what might gonna happen, things and that, what kind of like effect on people and things and that. Okay, and from that possible point of perspective, how much that bad artifact, oh